Chasm is Ben Reilly turned villainous. Again. But why? And how? And what do we really have to fear? Ooze, that's what. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. It's me, Amanda. What are your thoughts on Chasm, Ben Reilly, and all things Spider-Man right now? Let us know in the comments below. Number 10. Beyond Corporation. What happened to make Ben Reilly become the villainous being known as Chasm? That's a good question. Really, this is all explained in the pages of the Spider-Man Beyond event or storyline, which had a ton of tie-ins as well as extra bonus stories with their Point Bay issues, which occurred in between issues of the main storyline, diving deeper into the intricacies of smaller story points as the story unfolded. The Beyond event was a weekly release, so there was lots to read for those of us who followed along with this event. But overall, I'd say this event was worth all the reading with lots of fun moments as well as many twists and turns to keep us guessing, as well as keep us eager to turn every single page. One of the highlights for me was definitely the team up between Mary Jane and Black Cat. In the Beyond event, Ben Reilly takes over the mantle of Spider-Man after the Beyond Corporation gains the rights to the Spider-Man name and hires him to be basically their Spider-Man. Peter for a while is in a coma, leaving Ben mostly uncontested for the Spider-Man moniker, except for Miles of course, who is actually served papers and threatened to change his name or deal with being sued. Eventually, it's revealed that Beyond was manipulating Ben's mind, and even that Ben had signed off on this, wanting to forget some less desirable moments in his past. However, after he catches on to their real purpose, a violent mind wipe goes wrong, leaving integral memories of Ben damaged and causing him to forget who he is and kind of have like a bit of an identity crisis. In the end, he chooses to die rather than accept help from Peter and falls into a pit of green ooze as the Beyond Corporation headquarters in New York is destroyed. Or at least, we thought he was dead. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here on Top 10 Nerd and you love hearing about how some more heroic characters can become evil, we have a Top 10 Evil Alternate Versions playlist for you to check out where you can learn about all the evil alternates that exist in the multiverse. Number 9. The Ooze. In reality, Ben fell into the pit of ooze and was reborn again, this time with improved oozified powers. These newfound powers give him an enhanced spider sense, which also lashes out at the danger that he senses. He can also hit people with blasts of ooze now too. Ooze-tastic. Number 8. Dark Web. What is Dark Web? Well, it's the current ongoing Spider-Man event, following what happened in Beyond, which we already touched on and which resulted in the creation of Chasm. Ben Reilly now has a new identity and a new purpose. He has been warped by his loss of memories completely, and probably from falling into a bunch of ooze. He decides the best course of action now is to take out those responsible for his fall from grace, and he decides to ally himself with others who have been wronged in order for them to all achieve their own similar but different objectives. Chasm's plan is to defeat Peter Parker, who he sees as a threat, and who he ultimately blames for all the things that have befallen him, basically feeling that like Peter is kind of keeping memories from him, when really that's not what Peter wants to be doing. Dark Web is about these various villains coming together to redeem what they feel they are owed, having all been twisted in some way by past traumas, and for some of them kind of current traumas. Really, it's an event about confronting the pain others have caused you and all the various ways you can deal with and you can hopefully potentially heal from that. Number 7. Chasm. Why the name Chasm? Does it mean anything to Ben? Why, yes, of course it does. Chasm is a name that Ben chose in reference to the memories that he is missing, because without them there is a great void in his mind. You might say, a great chasm? What memories did Ben lose? Well, chiefly he lost the memories that made him who he was, a hero. He lost the formative memories that he shares with Peter of their childhood, a childhood that Peter actually lived but Ben only remembers. He also lost some of the memories that Beyond wanted him to lose, ideally, which means that he wouldn't have remembered uncovering their secrets. So in that way, it kind of makes sense that when it comes to who he blames for the missing memories and the lack of a sense of self, he would blame Peter for this more than not. Although I do believe at the end of Beyond he does kind of figure out that Beyond was still kind of behind everything, but I do question how much of the memories he has of that are there. There is also the fact that Maxine Danger, head of the division of Beyond that Ben did work for, implied that the only way to get back his memories would basically be to use one of their devices to forcefully take said memories from Peter, pitting the two against one another during the final showdown in that event. Number 6. The Calling. We also learn near the beginning of Dark Web of how Chasm may not have even been the major player behind the plot here. As Chasm, Ben is suffering. He is questioning who he is, and every thought and memory he has left seems to only cause him more suffering, more pain. He has been raiding beyond safe houses, as we learn in issue number 14 of the Amazing Spider-Man series, and finding all kinds of tech there. And it seems to be one of the only things that brings him any sense of relief. Well, maybe other than Janine's presence, who, you know, she obviously, I think, makes him feel a little better. The tech he claims feels like some kind of key. He knows that Beyond was using it in some kind of project that was near completion called Project Purgatory, and he believes with his genius he can actually get it to work. And it seems that is the key to the calling he is feeling, reaching out to him from a place. A place called Number 5. Limbo. Chasm isn't just allied with anyone when it comes to this Dark Web event. He's allied with one of the most powerful villains around, one of the most powerful people around, Madeline Pryor. Madeline Pryor more recently seemed to be focused on healing, moving past her traumas, not villainy, but it turns out this was all part of a larger plot to get what she wanted most. Madeline Pryor apparently hadn't actually healed, at least not fully, and what she needed to complete the process, or what she needed because the process hadn't been completed maybe, was the memories that were stolen from her. These were the memories of Nate, aka once baby Christopher, growing up. Jean ended up acquiring all of Madeline's memories following the original Inferno event in the comics when Maddie was defeated. Jean ended up in a way becoming like a mom to Nate because of this, because she had an emotional connection to him, with all the memories of raising the baby that Maddie had prior. And now Madeline wants all of that back. Well, she wants the backlog of stuff that she missed. She wanted not just the memories of raising baby Christopher, but also the memories of what happened with raising him after she'd missed out on that. And she also wanted all the memories involving her and her death and her funeral. And this was where her allegiance with Chasm basically came in. Chasm is also after his lost memories, which he feels Peter Parker has stolen from him, and aims to get them back himself, and also end Peter Parker in a sort of there can only be one type showdown. Number 4. Hallows Eve. Not only is Madeline an ally of Chasm, but so is Hallows Eve. Hallows Eve is actually Janine Godby, who is Ben's love interest, kind of like his version of Mary Jane, but if Mary Jane had an even more messed up childhood and was also forced into becoming a murderer and a criminal in self-defense, spending most of her adult life in prison. Hallows Eve ends up becoming a villainous sidekick to Chasm and the Goblin Queen in the Dark Web event after Maddie uses the demonic magic of Limbo to give Hallows Eve powers. Hallows Eve can essentially create masks which have different effects on her enemies depending on which one she's wearing and wielding at the time. The symbolism here is kind of in reference to the fact that in her life, Janine has felt she had to assume many different identities in order to survive, which is why Maddie sort of gave her that power. Even her name, Janine, is actually not her original name, but one she adopted when she was on the run, although it is the name she chooses to be addressed and referred to by in preference to her given name, because obviously she has past stuff attached to that she does not want to think about, I imagine. Number 3. Venom. While not as Chasm specific, I feel like this point is still really relevant when it comes to Chasm and his story in Dark Web. Chasm and the Goblin Queen, along with their sidekick Hallows Eve, aren't the only ones who end up allied together in this event. Venom also gets sucked into this villainous team up himself, which might seem odd initially, considering that Venom is Eddie Brock, who isn't even really Venom anymore, but rather is the King in Black following the defeat of Null. Not only that, but Eddie for the last few years has really been more of a straight up hero, not a villain at all. Venom, the symbiote Venom, would go on to bond with Dylan Brock, Eddie's son, but after Eddie ends up in Limbo requesting help from Madeline and Chasm, Maddie sees an opportunity here. She agrees to help Eddie find his son, but in exchange forces him to join her and Chasm's plot, removing Eddie's memories of Dylan. Now this makes him believe he is Venom once more, but after he realizes his other is no longer there and he's alone, he instead becomes the future villainous version of himself, or one of those, Bedlam. Number 2. Gus. Maybe one of the darkest moments of all comes to us in Amazing Spider-Man issue number 14, at least thus far. In this late 2022 issue, Chasm is revealed to be allied with both the Goblin Queen and Hallows Eve, and ends up confronting someone who repeatedly has mistaken him for Peter, insisting that Ben pay him what Peter owes. Well, before Ben had simply responded that, you know, he was not in fact Peter, so just stop talking to me, I'm not Peter. This time around, Ben instead beats the man up and then takes him to Limbo. There, Madeline Pryor the man by consuming his soul, and in so doing receives his memories. This tactic then inspires Chasm when it comes to how to best retrieve his memories from Peter. No longer having the device, I believe, that Maxine offered him before, Ben now plans to kill Peter and consume his soul in order to regain the memories lost to him. Not only is that a super dark and terrifying thought and twist, but we also need to acknowledge here that Ben and Janine both became accessories to murder. Number 1. Pain. As if someone wasn't bad enough, it seems the key to understanding Chasm and so many of the characters' narratives present in Dark Web as well is understanding loss and pain. To really understand why Ben becomes Chasm and why he pursues Peter so ruthlessly, you need to understand what his loss feels like. In issue number 14 of Amazing Spider-Man from 2022, Ben describes his loss to Janine and how it feels to him. "I've lost a lifetime. I don't know what I was before I woke up in the Jackal's lab. There's nothing and then I'm just there. And everything after that is scrambled. The only memories that seem to punch through, the ones carrying pain. People telling me I'm not real, beyond manipulating me, all the dying, all the loss. I don't remember meeting you, but I remember all the times I lost you. Pain, pain, pain." It's understandable why he and so many others involved in this story seem to be turning to the darker side, because, I mean, they sound to really be hurting. And isn't that how it usually goes? You get hurt, and you usually end up hurting others. Even if on paper that seems like an obvious thing to not do as someone who's been hurt, it never seems to be quite so obvious to characters, or honestly even real world people in the moment. That's all the time we have for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope you are enjoying Dark Web if you're reading along. I will see you next time, but until then, you stay nerdy, YouTube.